Good morning to everyone that was here earlier, and good morning if you weren't here earlier. Thanks for being here. If Thomas is here, I want to thank him again for a great presentation earlier and a CEO crash course. My name is Heather Yugi. I am with Chico Start also, and I'm using my paper just because I don't have a great memory, so I can't memorize. Our next speaker is Tyler Smith. He's CEO of Matson Isom Technology here in Chico. They are on the north end of town off Eaton and Esplanade, if I'm correct. Yes. Tyler works with organizations across Northern California to help them use technology as a strategic asset rather than a source of stress. His focus is on clarity, alignment, and practical decision-making that supports long-term success. He is going to be talking about AI and aligning it with your business mission. AI is everywhere right now, and for entrepreneurs and small business leaders, the pressure to do something with AI can feel overwhelming. Am I right? How to use AI in a way that actually supports your mission, your people, and your customers without adding risk or distraction. Rather than focusing on tools or technical details, Tyler's session will help you think clearly about where AI fits and where it doesn't, and how to make thoughtful decisions that align with your goals. This is a practical session designed by founders, startup leaders, for founders, not by you guys, by Tyler. Startup leaders and small business teams who want to move forward with confidence, and it's not about replacing people. With that, let's give a warm welcome to Tyler Smith.
Thank you, Heather. And yes, we are here today to talk a little bit about AI. And if you were expecting for us to dive into how to boot up Claude and start coding your own app to replace everything, this is not the right room for you. We are going to start at a higher level. We're going to talk about some practical ways to think about this technology and to implement it thoughtfully instead of reactively, okay? So generally speaking, what do we want to do? We want to explore it. We want to understand it. We want to think about it from a business perspective. And what you'll hear me say over and over and over again, and if you hear nothing else, please hear this. We are here to look at this technology for how it can actually help our employees, help our mission, help our clients, whatever business model you're in, do whatever we do faster, do whatever we do more thoroughly, and in general, increase and amplify your abilities and your team's abilities to do whatever it is you do. So again, this is how you spell my very complicated name. It's S-M-I, and then right at the end, this is the part that trips people up, T-H, okay? So my name is Tyler, and I have been with Matson Isom Technology as of this month, 24 years here in Chico. I know, I don't look that old. The gray stripes are earned, I assure you. But this is something that is very interesting to me, and something that we have been working with our clients in and around this area and all over the country for the last few years. And so it's accelerating. It feels like it's just absolutely building up all of this momentum. So kudos to all of you for being here today to pull back a little bit and start thinking about it from a little bit higher perspective. So the first thing I always want to bring up is when we talk about AI, what do we mean by AI, right? So I want you to close your eyes for a second, think about it, and then consider when I say the word AI, you can use your hands, this is an interactive session after all. Think about when I say AI, do you think this guy or this guy? Okay, two very different pictures of AI that have been given to us quite a long time ago, right? This is late 70s, that's early mid 80s, right? So we've had this idea of AI for such a long time now, and so many different ideas through science fiction about how this might go. Obviously, that's the one we don't want. This is the one that we think of, okay, well, he's charming, he's a little bit bumbly, he stumbles around, but he's helpful, right? He's there to be a helpful piece of technology for the humans he's with. This one just wants to kill you and take over whatever it is you're doing and kick you square out of the way so that they can destroy the entire planet without you getting in the way. So, sound familiar? These are the paradigms for how people are talking about this technology right now. And we're going to zoom out and say, okay, all right, which one am I on? All right, I I didn't see hands, by the way. Right hand, let's see, stage right. Are you C3PO over here? Yeah, okay. Or the other one, T1000. Okay, we're running away from that one. We got a bunch of optimists in the room. I love it. So we got to talk about the potential, right? What is this? By the way, substitute the word AI with technology and you have the same statement. It works. And this has been the story of technology basically since the printing press, right? It'll help us be more productive, more efficient. We're going to do more with less, and hopefully all of that extra productivity we have, all that extra energy we have, can go toward that mission. The highest and best use of our time as human beings. Who here loves to write policies? Interactive session, be honest. One half raised in the front, I saw that. Oh, nope, nobody else is doing it. There are lots of things that we all do as business owners, as people in business, that must be done, but drive absolutely no joy in your life to do them, right? And I apologize in advance for people who are in HR who are like, but I love policies. Most of us are not in that camp. So the promise here and the potential is that this technology will help us take some of that low-hanging fruit off the table and get us moving more forward toward focusing on our mission. But we would be remiss as humans if we didn't talk about, okay, yeah, but there's a few little things I'm a little bit worried about. Maybe I'm not worried about the T1000, but you know what? It is changing like every week, if not every day. The last time I asked it a question, it gave me a very fanciful answer that was completely wrong, confidently wrong. So that's a little concerning to me. I heard somewhere that it literally stole every book ever written and made it part of its model. That's ethically questionable, right? And if you know any writers or illustrators or artists, they have very strong opinions about the ethicality of this whole thing. Musicians, yeah. Art in general, right? Creative work. That's absolutely part of the concern of this. Where are we going with it? This technology is moving faster by a long shot than the laws that we have, right? That we've adopted, that are here. And the way that it's moving forward is very classic Silicon Valley. Move fast and break things, right? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Well, in the world of AI, it's, hey, we can. Let's go. So it is a concern, and it's not, I'm not going to stand up here today and say, oh yeah, it's fine, everything's fine. Just don't worry about it. You should worry about it. But everything's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, that wonderful little gif of the dog at the table, right? Oh, it's fine, everything's fine. This is absolutely something to be concerned about. But, you know, as we look at it, we're going, okay, these are things, these are concerns. And then that last part there, bring up music, right? This is a technology that's challenging what we've always thought of as uniquely human. What are we good at? We're good at poetry, we're good at music, we're good at art, we're good at creative thinking and creative writing. And all of a sudden, we're all kind of worried about, wait a minute. I want technology to do the dishes, take out the trash, and write my policies so that I can write poetry and music and do all these things. And you're here to tell me that it's writing poetry and music, and I still have to take out the trash? The promise is not yet caught up with the want. And then there's this other little thing we got to worry about, you know. But I think we're okay for now, but keep an eye on that guy. So what's the challenge? Well, the challenge is you don't have a great amount of choice in the matter at the moment. That's an overstatement. You always have a choice. But if you are working in any kind of competitive landscape, and by the way, if you are at the nonprofit, competitive landscapes for nonprofit exist too. You're just competing for the same funding sources, right? So maybe you're not competing for customers or clients, but everyone who is looking at this technology has to acknowledge that this is moving very fast. The value proposition for this technology is obvious and clear, and if you've used it for any more than 5 minutes so far, you've probably had at least one wow moment. And that's genuine. That's because it is compelling. It is very, very impressive technology. So we can't just stick our heads in the ground and say, you know what, it's fine. Everything's fine, it'll all blow over. We can't afford to ignore it. We absolutely can't afford to ignore it. So you got to pick one. Where are you going to go? Which direction? We can't afford it. So that's the overwhelming part. We all, I think, coming into this room, understand that implicitly. So when we're starting to look at, all right, it's ethically questionable, it's moving super fast, it makes me nervous, but I've used it and now it's impressive and I feel like I've got to incorporate this somehow into what I do. You don't have to raise your hand, or you can if you want, but how many people were like, all right, sweet, I just signed up, I've been using it, I have no idea how it's going to work, but it seems useful so far. Yeah, everybody in this room silently inside their brains going, yeah, I've done that. Or I've been using the free one this whole time, or all of the free ones. Let's talk about some common mistakes that you should be aware of if you're early on in this journey of adopting this technology, particularly in a business capacity. If you're looking to not just have this for yourself, but for yourself and a team, and you're looking to implement it in a consistent way, what are some of the things that trip people up that are common here at the very beginning? All right, so our first one here, probably one of the most obvious. Hey, that tool's cool. Let me just adopt it. What problem am I solving? I don't know, but I've got a subscription. Yes. What problem are you trying to solve? Spending a little bit of time at the beginning of this, I joked earlier about who likes to write policies, right? A lot of problems, especially entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses in general have is there's this mountain of stuff that needs to be done. These are the important things, not the urgent things, that when you start a business, you have no idea how to do. So what do? We go find experts, maybe some partners. Hopefully you know someone who knows something about the law. Hopefully you know somebody who knows something about California payroll. You have to start making those partnerships, but there's still gaps when you're doing it. So deciding what are the problems that I'm trying to solve with this technology at the very beginning is a good way to kind of get your foot in and start thinking about it. Here's another big one I see all the time. People are like, I can automate. I can make stuff go faster. I can make this thing talk to that thing and do all the stuff in between I don't understand. So yes, let's do that. Automate all the things. But if you automate broken processes, congratulations, they're just broken faster, right? Think that through. If you've got bad processes that go from person A to person B to person C, back to A, then to B, then to D, then to F, then if you automate that in a way that just basically follows the same weird path, you're just going to get to bad results faster. And maybe that's important, maybe that's helpful, especially in a startup, to figure out what's not working. But just be cautious of automating broken processes. This technology really makes it fast to do that kind of stuff, but you still have to be the steward of the process creation as you're building your business or your process. You don't want to go into this and think, okay, one of my problems as a business is talking to clients. Who needs them, right? They just ask questions. I want this thing to just always respond on my behalf. Do you? Really? Don't put AI in those seats that have those human touch points. Don't over AI, in other words. If you're thinking, man, the phone's ringing too much, I'm not getting enough done, maybe if I just get an AI receptionist, this will solve a problem for my business. Maybe that's true, but think that through carefully. If one of the things that differentiates you in whatever it is you do is that human touch, and people appreciate that, and there's a relationship touch point to manage, if you just go out and buy, and I guarantee you could do it from your phones right now, go out and subscribe to a new service that's an AI receptionist that could be answering your phone calls by the end of this presentation, you might end up inadvertently or unintentionally creating a barrier between you and your customers and the people you serve. So you have to think about that. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. Think that through. Who's heard of this one? Hey. Letting a tool define your AI strategy. I heard Gemini can XYZ. I heard ChatGPT can ABC. Maybe I should ABC. Maybe I should XYZ. If you're chasing the features of the tool set without applying critical thought about what problems you're trying to solve, then
For AI to draft your AI policy?
That's a great question.
That's what's currently happening.
I love the phrase, and I should memorize it, but who guards the guards, right? It's Latin. Anybody in the room know it, the original? But that's a philosophical question more than anything, right? Like, should I trust the technology to govern the technology? And the answer is more philosophical than practical. You have to always be thinking about just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this is something that always comes up. How much do you delegate fully to the technology versus continue to take responsibility for, right? Has anybody ever gotten a weird message back from somebody that starts with, "I hope this email finds you well"?
Oh, yes. Why do they all start?
Yeah, because they're all using the same large language model, which is ChatGPT, because it was the first thing out. And ChatGPT in its early model development said, the humans like the small talk. Start there, right? And if you did that and the rest of that email was like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And you reply to that person and you say, what are you talking about? And they say something back like, oh, sorry about that. The AI did it. Anybody experience this? It's rare because almost nobody admits to it. But if that happens, that's a major problem. You as the human are responsible for your communications, especially if you are leveraging these technologies to craft them. Never over-delegate to the technology something that you don't want to take responsibility for. Okay? This is a critical point, I feel like, that a lot of people are kind of letting go of. It ties into all these mistakes. But you want to still hold responsibility. So from that policy concept, just because it drafted it for you, still put your name on the bottom of it, right? I doubt you're going to write AI policy drafted by AI tool implemented at the bottom of the document, right? And not checked by same AI tool who said it looks good, right?
Requiring it for other areas, so it begs the question in business, because there's tools all the time that can tell if you're using AI.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
what is that going to
Take responsibility for it, right? I think if you hear nothing else today, one of the things is use it to amplify your own impact, right? And take responsibility for that. Don't delegate to it and then basically abdicate responsibility. Okay? And then this is one that I always want to point out, because if you're a founder, a business owner, the person who's making the decision to subscribe to new tools and then pay for them, hopefully you're paying for them. And then you've got 5 employees who do all the work, and you're sitting there like, all right, well, I drafted the AI usage policy with AI, and then I didn't pay for anybody else's tools. They can fend for themselves. If you skip those people, I have bad news for you. They're bringing it to their job without you. And they're probably using the free version. And what does the free version mean? If you don't pay for the product, finish the sentence.
You are the product.
Hey, you guys are paying attention. I like that.
Proprietorship. So
Generally, the idea is if you're using the free versions, everything you put into it is consumed by the model. So if you're putting any kind of proprietary data in there, any kind of compliance subject data in there, then the benevolent, well, no, that's not benevolent. That's the wrong word. The people in Silicon Valley who have lots and lots of money are benefiting from your generosity to donate all of your writing and content to the model for future use. If you pay for them, and this is true as far as I know across Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, and Microsoft Copilot, if you're paying for the tool, they do not use what you put into it to train the model. So,
can you use it to train your model, though? Will it eventually learn your style?
You can, yes. We'll get there a little bit when we talk about agents.
You can put prompts in it and it will eventually grow into it.
Yeah. So the opportunity here, and I think this is really well understood, the opportunity is to use AI, and you heard me say this, and you hear me say it again and again and again, to amplify people's impact, not replace them. And you're hearing a lot and a lot and a lot right now of all these people got replaced with AI. Some of that is probably true. But we're not dealing in corporate America. Raise your hand if you work for a company that has more than 10,000 employees. Used to, yeah, currently, right now in the room. Most of the people in this part of the world are working with small to mid-sized organizations, which is defined as basically sub 2,000 employees, usually 5 to 75 employees. And in the 5 to 75 employee range, and I would say even up to about the 500 employee range, this is what the opportunity is. Take the people that you have that are good at the core of what they do and give them tools to make them better at that thing. Give them tools to help them knock the low-hanging fruit off of the table so that they can focus more of their time on what they're good at and what you hired them for, and less of their time writing policies or responding to rote emails. Okay? So you'll hear me say it again and again. This guy, he's here to help us do what we do better. Right? He speaks how many different languages? I don't know. Make sure that that's at the core of how you're approaching this problem. Now, let's talk about a few things that, as you're thinking about your approach here, what should you do, what should you ask before you say, great, we're signed up? And I know this is a little bit rhetorical because probably everybody in this room is like, I've been using it for 2 years now, Tyler. What do you mean before I say yes? I said yes a long time ago. But what do we want to answer question-wise? This ties back to those common mistakes. What problem are we trying to solve? Have we thought about that clearly? Are there things in your business, your organization, that are just, finish this sentence, if I just had enough time. Why don't we have enough time? Well, because often we're dealing with the urgent and not the important. If we can leverage tools like this to solve some of those important problems that are maybe less urgent, or take some of those things that are urgent issues because they've been important, and hey, guess what? Taxes are due in about 7 days. That becomes important too urgent. So what are we trying to solve? Spending some time thinking about that. What are those tasks that are on your plate personally, on your employees' plates, the things that you just can't ever seem to quite get to? Could those things have better results or get you to 80% done so that someone can come in and push it over the finish line? Who is affected if you roll out a tool and it goes badly? Your clients, your employees, your partners, your vendors. You have to think that through. Again, never delegate to AI what you wouldn't want to take responsibility for yourself. Ties in here. You have to think that through. Who's affected? If all of a sudden you implement AI to review incoming, say you're in insurance, incoming claims, they're doing this by the way, and it is summarily declining everybody in a very specific niche, that has impact on people, that has effect on people. So you need to think that through, especially from a small business, because if something goes wrong, it is absolutely not an excuse to stand up and say, well, sorry about that, the AI did it. Blame Copilot. Blame ChatGPT. Blame Gemini. I think, this is my theory, we're 6 months, maybe 12 months away from somebody out there doing that. I am suing OpenAI because they screwed up my business. What? Well, I implemented this tool and then all my customers left for a competitor because the tool did it wrong. It's the wrong way to think about this. Who's affected? This is a really important one. Do we have the data? I talked to the previous speaker briefly and mentioned telling a story about somebody being able to go out and just ask, what did the CEO say about me in my last performance review? Or something like that. And that is almost certainly due to poorly structured data, over-permissive data. If you're going to take this tool and implement it in your business and tell everybody in your business to use this tool, but your business has everything in one big bucket with no permissions applied, and you've been relying on security by obscurity for the entire business duration, guess what? The AI is going to go index that, find it, pull it into a lovely context window, and when somebody asks, what did the CEO say about it, or when's my next review increase set for, it's going to go find that document, pluck it out, and go, here you go. Not because the AI is bad inherently, but because the data is poorly organized. It's just helping you fail faster. right? If you don't spend the time to actually clean that up and make sure that the right people in the organization have access to the right data and don't have access to the data they shouldn't have access to, then you're going to implement a tool that helps people find things out they shouldn't. And that, again, that's not a limitation of the tool, that's a limitation of this data and the structure. Do we have the capacity? Do we have the trust? Have we trained anybody about anything? Or have we just said, AI is cool, go use it? Tell me if you have any questions. Does it support our mission? Is this going to help us do what we do better? That's a question you should actually ask. Say it out loud. And this is my favorite. What happens when it's wrong? It's OpenAI's fault. It's ChatGPT's fault. It's Gemini's fault. It's Claude's fault. I love, by the way, that Claude has a name, right? ChatGPT is some kind of, it's got weird letters in it. Copilot is some wonderful marketing experiment. You know, Gemini sounds like we're going to the moon, and Claude is just Claude. You know, that's what Claude said to me. But what happens when it's wrong? You have to think about that, because it will be. It will be. It will confidently lie to you, particularly if you're asking it questions about things you don't understand. It will say, this is the absolute and objective truth. And boy, you can trust me. And then if your follow-up prompt is, are you sure? It might say, oh, you know what, on second thought, you're right. That's completely wrong. It will still do that. In this day and age, on April 8th, 2026, if you ask it a simple follow-up, are you sure, especially in an area that's maybe a little bit abstract, you don't understand very well, often it will go, you know, on second thought, I lied. So you have to anticipate what happens when it's wrong. You cannot and should not fully delegate to AI something that you are not willing to take responsibility for. So answer that question. All right, let's keep moving along here. How do we actually get started using this? And again, I know this is mostly rhetorical since you're probably all using it right now. If I rephrase this, how would you go about starting to use this as a group? A lot of us, I think, have approached this technology as individuals and are now thinking about how can we implement it thoughtfully for our whole team or our whole company. So how do we build this up? And a lot of this is not going to be a big surprise because I've already talked about common mistakes, or I talked about the other things you need to think about as you're getting started, like what questions to ask. So this is a little bit more prescriptive. What should we do? Well, we should start by just assessing and planning this out. Do we have budget for this? Have we thought about this at all? What are those problems we're trying to solve? What are those important issues they never quite get to resolution on because we're always dealing with the urgent stuff? How do we form a very rough or at least a high-level plan for this? Have we thought at all about how our data is structured and who has access to it? Is our data scattered across 14 Google Drive folders that everybody in the company has access to? Is it in a bunch of individual people's personal OneDrive accounts? Where is our data as a company? Pull it together if it's scattered all over Hell's Half Acre. Have we actually thought about, is our data good? Raise your hand in your mind if you have file structures that look like this. Final version, final version, final, no really, I'm serious. This one is actually the real final one, and then this one's called shipped, and that's the one that's the real version, right? There's 5, 8, 10, 20 versions of that thing in the same folder even, and if you expect that to go into AI and to have it make sense and know which one is authoritative, I have bad news for you. It's going to confidently lie to you and tell you that the one called final, no really this time is the one, and maybe that's wrong. Because no one ever did cleanup, right? You as a human can look at that list and go, yeah, I know. Usually it's not done until I say final 7 times. There we go. If you haven't done any of that data quality cleanup and structuring, then you're giving a very sophisticated tool set a very messy problem to solve. And it will solve it messily sometimes. So you need to think through that, and you need to actually say, okay, what are we going to do to get our data cleaned up? If you're the leader of your organization, if you are the change maker of your organization, notice those are possibly 2 different roles. You have to think about, all right, if I'm the one pushing for this change in our organization, if I'm the believer, that this technology is going to make a difference and help us do what we do better and amplify the impact of all of our employees, then you have to lead that change. You have to make that point. You have to speak about the concerns. You have to give humans, those squishy gray matter up here, the ability to say, I heard it stole everything on the internet. Are we stealing when we use it? You have to be able to talk through that and create a compelling vision for that change that is actually going to help people understand why should they use the technology. Not just use the technology, but what's the reason? What are we solving? What problem are we actually rolling through here? And what's the vision of the other side of the change and the implementation? Because otherwise, you're just asking people to act on faith. And sometimes that's okay. That's good enough in startup because there's such strong faith in the founder or the vision outside of this that there's whatever, sounds good. Let's do it. But often you have to make the case. And making the case means being clear about what you think this is going to help with. And if you haven't yet clarified that for yourself, you need to, so that you can convince other people that this is a worthwhile effort. Because if you're going to convince other people it's a worthwhile effort, you probably should train them, right? This follows that. Don't start here. These things are in order. If you're saying, hey, go out and learn how to use Gemini, and they raise their hand and they're like, what's Gemini? And you smack your forehead and you're like, I hired you, you're supposed to be on the cutting edge of everything. And they go, oh, I use the other one. I use, I think it's called Cloud or something. If you start here, then you're not even getting to the part where you're saying, here's why we're picking this particular tool, here's what we've done to get here, here's where we're going, and here's why I'd like you to take this series of small trainings to get up to a competent prompt engineer on whatever technology we choose. That's the part where I see a lot of businesses fall. They may be really dedicated. They may actually go through and say, all right, we've got this great. We've assessed things. We've worked with an expert to address our cybersecurity issues. We've cleaned things up. We picked the tool, and I gave a speech in front of everybody, and everyone nodded vaguely. When I said, does anybody have any questions? Beside the one guy who was asleep in the back row, everybody seemed really excited about it. So I said, go. And then everybody just kind of goes, I guess I'll ask the tool how to ask questions of the tool. And you'll have the stratification of people who are really good at it, who love change, who want to be on the cutting edge, who are like leading the next session about it. And you'll have a middle section of people that are like, well, what's he doing? How did he write that? How did your email look so great? Mine will all start with, I hope this email finds you well. And then you'll have the people that are in the back just going, you can't make me do this. You have to fire me first. You have to build this into the way that you implement this technology. Because if you don't, you're going to have that kind of teasing apart of the different kinds of people who are going to train themselves, the people that are just going to get by, and the people that are going to actively resist. So, yeah.
Next question on that, like psychologically, every time the topic of AI comes up and you want employees to use it, they just think they're going to be replaced in a matter of days. Mm-hmm. Like, do you have any thoughts on that, or how do you present this, or get around that?
That is 100% where my laser pointer doesn't do any good on that. Change leadership really matters, because if you skip that part and you just say, we've done a study, we've cleaned up our data, and we'd like you to start using this tool, and they don't understand the why, then you will absolutely create anxiety, because they'll say, the brave ones will raise their hand and say, does this mean everything I do is training the model and I'm going to be replaced in 6 months? And if you're not the one bringing that up, either they will or they won't, and they'll think it. So when you're doing your change leadership discussion, you have to bring that up. You have to specifically say, assuming your intent is not to replace them with AI, you have to explicitly say, our intent is not to replace you with AI. Say that out loud. You have to do that, because if you don't, they'll hear it in the subtext. And if you are going to do it, be honest about that, because it's like, hey, this may go. If we can automate this out, maybe we have fewer employees. We'll deal with that, but we'll talk about it as we go. You need to address that anxiety head on, because if you say nothing about it, or if you think that by using enough flowery descriptions of vision that they will just get that without stating it, they will probably still think it. Especially when they get articles or podcasts or posts on the internet that say, Microsoft just laid off 10,000 people because they say they're replacing them with AI. That will be the narrative they hear.
Just a note, I work in L&D and all the kind of veteran leaders.
Mm-hmm.
One of whom, Josh Cavalier, he has now the position of the human machine performance analyst. And so as a learning experience designer and instructional designer, we're not losing our jobs, but our jobs are shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what you're talking about falls under that umbrella of the duties that person would do. So we're reinventing ourselves again.
Yeah. And this is the story of technology. Fundamentally, it keeps advancing to the point where there's always a fear that the technology will replace the humans, right? And what tends to happen is the humans just take on more responsibility. Like the expectations of productivity go up for the same number of people.
That's what happened initially, and now we're just shifting.
Yeah. And some of it, I firmly believe that some of these large-scale firings were going to happen anyway, because this is what corporate America does, right? They overhire and they go, well, we hired too many people. And then they find something to blame, right? And they're like, AI sounds good. Everybody likes the big boogeyman. We'll just call it AI. And some of it is true, like they're getting more productivity out of fewer people, so they say, but a lot of it is faith-based. They're just saying, we think it's advancing fast enough that we can do more with fewer. Therefore, we're going to cut people because corporate America deals with Wall Street. And if they can cut their expenses by X%, then all of a sudden their stock price jumps and the CEO gets a nice little pay bump, right?
I was just going to speak as someone who is Tyler's employee and is also the outspoken employee who had the same question. Because before my role, I'm in marketing. They didn't have a marketing in the 20 years that we've existed. Mm-hmm. There was no marketing. And as soon as AI started to get its momentum, you're hiring someone that's in marketing. So are you hiring me to train your AI to do it? I'm not using that.
Yeah.
But I think what Tyler did to really get me more comfortable with using the tool is that allowing it to be very specific to what I was doing. You know what I mean? It's not everyone in our organization doesn't have access to our AI tools. There are specific use for specific people in their role. Mm-hmm. If it's not something that's really going to benefit you fully and progress you in your role, then there's no need for you to have access to it. And I think Tyler doing that gave a lot of comfortability to the whole office that this is not something that's meant to come in. Because we have people who are technicians and things like that. A lot of their things that they do could be automated and things like that. I don't want you to fear that that's going to happen to you. So he was very specific on who got access to that tool. And I think that gave a lot more comfortability for those who were using it.
More thoughtful, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is good. This is exactly the kind of discussion that we should be having and that you should be having inside your own organizations. Because before we get into some specific use cases, there's a term that I heard used first time a couple years ago called BYOAI, right? Everyone's heard of BYOD maybe, bring your own device, right? BYOAI is bring your own AI. So if you're not having these conversations, if you're not being the change leader in your organization, if you're not thinking about what should we do, what problems should this solve, then I guarantee you that your employees are bringing it to their job on their own. And worse, they're probably bringing the free versions to the job on their own, which means your company data, your proprietary whatever, is being used to feed the model. And if you're not aware of that, you should be having conversations with your staff. Let's talk about this. What do we need? What problems is it solving already that you don't even know it's solving? Unless someone says, I hope this email finds you well, and you go, ha! You sent me an email from the tool, probably the free one, stop. And they go, okay. Don't say, I hope this email finds you well anymore. So have that conversation.
I know.
I know.
I was going to interject and say, I do not use AI to write my emails. I just hope.
I apologize for outing anybody who, unfortunately, you helped train the model. Good job.
Well, I actually write that way. you're telling me that looks like AI? That's actually how I write.
Yeah. Which brings up, in a completely serious way, brings up another whole layer to this, right? Which is, how do I, as a human, differentiate my writing style from what has become an anodyne, repeatable model because the model adopted it, right? Now it's forcing you to change instead of the other way around. Yeah.
I took a paper I wrote, just like this little article I wrote, and as an English major, I put it through because it was saying that it was use of AI. I wrote it all, 100% me, all my research.
Yeah.
Sent it through 3 different AIs that all said it came back 72% AI.
Yeah.
I'm like, so how as an English major do I stop writing like the AI?
Yeah, this is 100% authentic intelligence, right? That's a different kind of AI. Yeah, and that's a problem too, because, and that's good experience that you have, because it showcases that the tools to detect the tools themselves are not perfect. And so we're in this Wild West period of, I think, people questioning authenticity. And that's a really important thing for us to consider as we adopt tools like this, because if you are becoming, through adopting these tools, less authentically human, and the expectation of your clients or the people you work with is that you remain a certain level of authentic, and they detect or think or suspect that you're not, then that will create a backlash, if not already. And it's all about that sense of integrity. And I think this is what's coming in the next year to 2 years is a little bit of a whiplash where all of a sudden people are going to say, look, I know you can use these tools. I know everybody is using these tools. How can you show me that you are still a real human that is giving me your genuine thoughts and feelings, not having it created by a tool that has been instructed to, give me this kind of a thing. Yeah.
Do you foresee that in the future there might be a law where anything that's produced by AI will have a watermark saying it's produced by AI?
In this country, probably not. But elsewhere maybe. And so that's going to create, I think, some issues globally. But what you are seeing, and what I really respect, like Adobe, for example, as a company, is in all of the tools that they have, which they've been embracing this from a Photoshop, Lightroom, all of the tools that do photography, videography, illustration, they are making the tool set itself embed metadata into the documents that are created that disclose that say, this photograph of me standing on a beach with a perfect physique may not be fully authentic, right? And they're putting that right into the metadata of the image itself. Now, I could then take that document and strip it out and put it online and try to fool everybody that I look good on a beach, but it wouldn't. People probably wouldn't believe it. But Adobe is doing that, and I respect them for that, because they, I think, are leading the way with kind of voluntarily saying it's important that people differentiate between fully generated art and authentic human-generated art. And if the tools can help with that in any way, then they're trying to do that. But whether or not it's going to be legally required, I think that's still an open question. But in the United States, at least, I don't think anytime soon. Maybe elsewhere. Okay.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So would it actually hurt your business if you said up front to somebody, I have generated some of my, mission statement or what we are doing in the company with AI? Would that hurt you, or do you think that would depend on your client?
It depends a lot, right? Because think back maybe 40 years ago, the dawn of the internet as a real going concern, right? It was created before then, but when people first started using the internet, maybe 35 years ago, there was this kind of hard line between, did you go to the library and research those sources, or did you just go online? Right? You remember this? If you all live in the room, do you remember this? There was that same sense of, you took a shortcut. You're not allowed to do that. You got to know how the Dewey Decimal System works to be a smart person in this country or this world. And so there was that early resistance that kind of met that. And ultimately, it came down to the same basic premise, which is are the sources you're using trustworthy? Did you apply effort to get from idea to product? And do you take responsibility for what is actually the end result? And if the answer to those three things is yes, 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 then in my mind, people are just going to accept this as a tool. Now, if you created a mission statement from nothing and just literally went to the prompt and said, write me a mission statement for a nonprofit in Northern California that does this stuff, and it goes, here you go, and you go, cool, copy, paste, done, then that's no different than going out in 1997 to yahoo.com, searching it up, and it's going, here's some weirdo from the Midwest who lives somewhere, I don't even know, maybe in a basement, who knows, he wrote this, and I just said this is truth, because I didn't in any way authenticate that it was a good source. So, but that's the right question, because I think people who are going to be resistant to this technology are going to overcorrect and say, you shouldn't do it at all, which is a kind of like, pre-Gutenberg, right? And it's like, you should write every letter by hand. No books should be published. We should just have 36 monks worldwide that write everything down. It's cheating. It's cheating to print things and distribute them broadly, right? This is the story of technology over and over and over again. But it's getting closer and closer to that core question, which is, do we trust that the human who is in charge of this company actually has integrity and is willing to take responsibility for this thing? That doesn't change. It just becomes more prominent. So what are some use cases? I'm going to go through these kind of quickly because I feel like you're probably already all doing these things. But here's some use cases that are very common, particularly in small business. On the left-hand side there, general management. If you are not using AI, I find it hard to believe, but if you're not using it right now for any other way other than help me draft this email, incorporating some kind of AI into your meetings so that it's able to pull transcripts from those discussions, generate notes, and allow the humans present to be more present and not furiously trying to type notes and say, hold on, wait, say that again. Okay, wait, but who's supposed to do that thing? If you do nothing else, Zoom has had this for a while now. It's improved quite a bit over the years. Microsoft has incorporated this. Google has now incorporated this. Use it where appropriate. I would not recommend using this in a conversation with your lawyer. I would not recommend you using this in a conversation around HR matters or anything else that you don't want to be dragged into a future lawsuit. But this is a really quick and easy way to incorporate this technology that gets you a ton of value with almost no training or real effort. So meeting notes and then creating next actions and saying, who volunteered for that? Tyler said he'd do that. See, it's right there in the notes. The classic one, document summarization, policy drafting, right? If you're sitting there, here's a list of 10 policies our business needs, but it's really important that I've never had time to do. If only I had more time in a day, I'd draft those policies. Start that process. And maybe you get it to 80%, and then you contract an outsized expert to come in and help you push it over the finish line. Billing and finance, can you take some of those things that really could be automated and start to drive some of that automation in your financial platform? Can you do things like enable some more qualitative fraud detection as opposed to just quantitative fraud detection? This is going to depend on what billing platform you're on, but look into those options. Can you use it to help in whatever sales and marketing means to you? Can you enable your marketing staff to be able to do more in a day, or to help you review your proposals, the quotes that you respond to? If you are a nonprofit and you're building an RFP, can you help make that better? Use it like a very sophisticated assistant. Can you help? Can you use it to help with some of this candidate screening and onboarding tasks? I had a question in a session like this a long time ago that said, quite rightly, hold on, if I use this fully to screen candidates, am I not subject to the same bias that whatever the model was used to train? So if the model was used on a certain kind of resume set, is it just going to rule out anybody who doesn't fit that? like all use cases with AI, be very intentional about how you deploy it. If you try to plug this technology in and say, find me a good candidate, go. You're going to be subject to whatever defaults are in the model, and the defaults are not always good. So be intentional and thoughtful about how you implement these technologies in these layers. But the important part is to consider when you're doing that first stage of how can this technology help solve real problems we have in a business, look at the lists like this. And then use this as a prompt to yourself, to the authentic intelligence to say, oh yeah, we really should have a proposal process. Right now, I just write it all from scratch every time. And it takes a really long time. And I kind of hate it. But the right Post-it note. Exactly. Where did it go? Is it here? Oh, it fell down. Somebody cleaned my desk. Oh no. Yeah, the cat. So I always, like I said, I always kind of push people, and if you've used it very little so far, I always push people in that direction because this is some of the real quick wins that you get out of technology. And so what's coming, or I should say what's here but not really widely adopted yet, is kind of the next layer of this technology, which is agents. If you've heard this word and gone, you mean like a sports agent? A booking agent? What do you mean by agent? The word is actually a very good word. ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI, I love them. They're very delightfully nerdy. They've had this word called custom GPT for a long time. Like anyone even knows what GPT means, right? But it's, hey, GPT. They've adopted that term, and so you'll see it all throughout their product set. But others, like Claude, like Microsoft Copilot, like Gemini, are using the word agent. And basically what agent is, conceptually, is pre-trained, pre-prompted tools. So the idea is you can string multiple agents together to complete tasks. So you could have an agent that takes raw data, and the prompt that governs that agent says, clean this up, make this look nice, find all the most relevant points, and then output it in a very specific format. It's very, very structured, small agent. And then the one that comes after that says, okay, now decide what kind of content this is. Is it finance content? Is it marketing content? Is it sales content? Is it a meeting? What is it? And then that agent's only job in life is to decide what kind of content is it, and then route it to the next most appropriate agent. And then one after that might say, okay, I'm the finance agent that's been trained on how this organization reviews finances, and I'm getting input from another one that has already cleaned it up, already decided it's the right place, and now it's a very specific tool to help do a very specific task. And that's the whole promise of agents, is that now we can start to string together this technology in a way that when you're just typing in a prompt, you're not actually getting the full value. Because over time, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you're in your 17th prompt in a long series of prompts, you start getting some weirdness, right? And that has to do with under the hood, the way the technology works. There's this big thing called a context window, and as that thing fills up, it starts to lose stuff. It's kind of like the whole, my brain is full, I need to take a break. Well, that happens in AI as well. So agents help break the problem into much smaller parts, and then each agent has its own context window. So it's basically a way to try to leverage this technology in a much more specific way, so that when you're thinking about these different scenarios, for example, with a proposal workflow, you might actually, in the future, build a proposal workflow that has 8 agents in it. And each agent has a very specific task or job, and it's been trained in a very specific way to more consistently produce a good result. So I bring that up because you've probably heard that word. It is something that is available now, and that's the general idea of how to use it. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes. I have just a couple of use case demos, but we've been doing questions throughout. So usually I have some questions at the end, but we've been doing them throughout. So I'll be here after as well through lunch. So if you have any questions that you don't get to, we can always talk about those then as well. Okay, so Who in here uses this every single day? And it went by this, I mean just AI in general. Yeah, okay. So you're already, I'm sure, familiar with the one prompt to rule them all, right? The one that came out first, that we get some downward thumbs. Yeah, the worst one now. Everybody's passing them by. And now we're in this game of this every week or two. But ChatGPT, the original, the OG, the one that is the household name, it has become the Kleenex of AI, right? Everybody's just like, oh yeah, I ChatGPT'd that. What did you use, Gemini? Oh, so not ChatGPT. No, but I ChatGPT'd it. When you are verbed, that means you've made it past the first layer of public consciousness. So general prompt, just a quick reference, and when I talked about agents and the idea of agents, in the world of ChatGPT, they call those GPTs, or there on the left-hand side. You can create your own GPTs, or you can go adopt others that have been pre-created by people. So, for example, out in the world of writing, talked about writing earlier, there's a whole bunch of GPTs that have been created by other people, which are really just prompts, very specific prompts, to do very specific things. So AI humanizer, isn't that lovely? By the way, this is, I think, only very lightly screened by OpenAI, so who knows? Yeah, lightly, like they probably have an AI screening for the AI, right? So these are, it's kind of the Wild West out here, but where I think most people have an opportunity is by creating their own. So creating something that applies a consistent voice to your organization. So just an example here, created one that's called a Sales and Marketing GPT, which has a prompt behind the scenes that guides it to use a very specific voice. So I think later today we're going to talk about marketing and voice and creating compelling stories that help reinforce you as the guide. So this is an example of a GPT that's been trained to speak in a very consistent voice. So for example, with what's behind the hood already in one click, if I'm going to set this up for my organization, I can answer simple questions like, help me differentiate our company from larger, less personal competitors. And the response that this generates is not the generic response. This is not the ChatGPT, I just came to the prompt and said, help me differentiate my business from everybody else in my thing. And it says, cool, who are you? Where are you? Or if you've been using it a long time, maybe it's got some stuff in memory, maybe it's learned a little bit about you. But this is a way to then take this and apply it across your whole company consistently. So this is a conceptual agent. Again, OpenAI calls this a GPT. So I just wanted to show you a quick version of that. In the Microsoft world, Microsoft has a tool called Copilot. Copilot is essentially just another platform. In the early days, at least, it was almost entirely based on OpenAI because Microsoft is a massive early investor in OpenAI. So Microsoft's Copilot was kind of just a rebranded ChatGPT. They're starting to diverge now. But Microsoft has some pre-packaged agents. So they have one called a researcher, one called an analyst. And essentially when you get into these agents within Copilot, it starts to give you some prompts that are a little bit more particular about what are you trying to do. So if you have a massive data set, somebody gave you an Excel spreadsheet, hopefully with good data, and you're saying, I really want to dig into this thing and learn more about it and understand what makes it tick quickly, then maybe you use the analyst agent as opposed to just the generic one where you type this much text to tell it what you want to do. And then in the Microsoft world, if all of your data as a business is already in the Microsoft cloud, then these agents are much more relevant because it can go find the documents you created and shared and then base its research on actual data that is shared in the organization as opposed to just whatever you feed it. So that's Microsoft's model. Obviously, if you're using Claude, if you're using Gemini, the big platform plays are Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini. If you live in the Google sphere, Googleverse, I guess maybe, Gemini makes a lot more sense because it has access to what you have access to, and if you're working in that, then it will pull much more relevant contextual data in answering any of your prompts. And the same is true for Microsoft Copilot. If you're on that platform, then those kind of make sense. If you're trying to square peg round hole a solution where you're really fond of Gemini, but all of your data is in Microsoft 365, good luck. Or the opposite, right? If you're a big Copilot fan, but everything's in Google, then you're going to have to do a lot more heavy lifting. OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Anthropic over here make connectors to both. So they allow integrations across the whole thing. So that is the balance of the time I think we have. Again, I will be here through lunch, so if you have additional questions, please feel free to ask them. But I will end with a very important point that I always forget to end with. I know the suspense is absolutely killing you. What important point? He's made none so far, so here's hoping. Said this several times. We are in Northern California. We are mostly in small to mid-sized businesses. The opportunity for this, don't replace people with AI. We've seen that movie, both of them, all of them. It doesn't end well, right? We instead want to lean this direction and use AI to amplify the impact of yourself, of your employees, so that you can do whatever it is you do better and deliver more on not just the urgent work, but the important work. So again, I've been Tyler. Thank you so much.